Hello, everyone. This is Misha. I'm just going to do one thing, but as you can see, we'll be starting our podcast shortly with Dr. Tanya English. All right, so welcome everyone. So happy that you're joining us here today for another episode. We're at number 39 of CoExistence, Joy, Pain, and Truth, Passing Joy Around the World. Today, my guest is Dr. Tanya English. My name is Misha Safran, and I am an international speaker, academic life coach, joy and resilience coach. I'm going to just go on, but I'm not going to go on because today is not about me. Today, I'm introducing a really wonderful just a wonderful woman in business for herself and in business to heal others. And so I'll read you her bio. Dr. Tanya English helps mothers and their families who have experienced stillbirth. Yeah, I'm just going to take a moment for that. Who have experienced stillbirth and pregnancy loss, so they can go from grief to grace. You are not alone. Dr. Tanya English has been working for over 30 years in healing, first as a massage therapist, then as a chiropractor and energy healer. She's also an accomplished blues singer. I know, that was pretty quick, right? You didn't expect that, but there you go. After experiencing a stillbirth in 1994, she had profound healing through blues music. And actually, she had a profound healing experience. So there was a monumental moment. There was a moment there that was just really pivotal for her. She then went on to practice chiropractic energy healing for the next 18 years. Dr. English started her band in 2012 and witnessed more healing with her audience and with her clients online internationally. She knows that the darkest tragedy can hold an endless well of blessings. So with that, isn't that perfect for my topic of this podcast, coexistence, joy, pain, and truth. Mm-hmm. So with that, I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Tanya English. Welcome, Hi. Dr. Tanya English.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here with you. I love
that. I'm delighted.
Joy, pain, and what was it?
Joy, pain, and truth.
And truth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Truth. We need more truth in the world, right?
Yeah, I love to say that, the truth is holographic. It doesn't matter how you slice it up or how you get to it. It's always going to be the truth.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, thank you. So curious, I want to share more about you and what you do in your career as we get towards the end of the podcast. Mm-hmm. So I want to leave room for that. I'll watch the clock on that. What would you say through your experience? Well, let's think about through your life experiences. Mm-hmm. What was the most, and I imagine I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask the question anyways. What was the most painful experience?
Well, yeah.
Experience
and pregnancy loss, yeah.
Yeah, and then what were the joys that you were able to either use, create, to walk through that?
Yeah. So in 1994, my husband and I were married at the end of 93, and in April of 94, you can do the math on that, we had a child that was full-term pregnancy, stillborn, our son Eddie. And then we had two daughters from his previous marriage that came to live with us. And then I had a live son who's now 25 and fully grown. And then I had a miscarriage after that. Mm-hmm. And so I had a lot of things happening between 94 and that was 98. Mm-hmm. So many, many things. Most of them happened in the year of 1994. Mm-hmm. So it was extremely difficult. It was an extremely difficult year. I was in overwhelm. And I just kept asking God to show me where healing was. Just put me where I need to be for healing. Mm-hmm. And so, being at the Mississippi Valley Blues Fest, we lived right near it. So it was like a walk from our house. And having that experience of having a healing from the 5 blind boys of Alabama at the time was amazing, because I felt this amazing, overwhelming wave of love come through me. And I had forgotten about that. I'd had it happen before in my life, but I had not pursued it in a way in my life. And so this was actually the reason why I said, when I was lying in the hospital bed, okay, if I'm going to believe that everything happens to the highest good, show me the good. Show it to me now, because this is not good.
Mm-hmm.
And
not only not good, but extremely painful.
Yeah,
Extremely.
It was. I mean, we kept saying, like, gee, I felt worse for Ed because he wasn't having any physical ailment, like physical experience, and I was. So I felt like it was easier for me to heal from that because I had the physical part too. And he had mostly the emotional part, but I also had that, so I could be distracted by my physical. I don't know. I hope this makes sense to people.
Yeah,
like the physical part to me was like, oh, I can concentrate on that. That makes it easier for me to deal with the emotional part of this. But the thing that was the hardest really was people don't know what to say, and they say the most ridiculous things you've ever heard in your life. Like, God needed another angel. I don't I don't subscribe that God has to make people die in order to create an angel, because I don't believe that kind of God. The kind of God I believe in is love. That's God is love. So to me, that didn't make any sense at all. And people try to say things to make you feel better, but I also got told that it wasn't like I was really a mom. And yeah, I don't know what that carrying the baby for 9 months was then. So I felt myself vibrate at a different energy after coming home from the hospital and not having a baby to hold. That was truly painful. And then the next most painful thing was when my milk came in. And that was really like, oh my God, this is a whole nother level of upset. So God kept putting things in my way to heal me. My neighbor came over and she said, how's the baby? And I said, no baby. And she handed me a sage plant. Well, if you eat raw sage leaves, it helps your milk dry up. So like, it was like these little miracles kept happening. At one point, we were standing in the living room and I had windows all around the living room. We were on a hill and it looked out over the Mississippi, and a blue balloon went floating by the windows. And I looked at my husband and I said, did you see that? And he said, yeah. I said, that we went outside. There was nothing going on around us. There was no party in the yard or anything. So it was just like these little things kept happening before and after. So I felt really cared for. I felt really like God was watching out for me. And then going in July to the Blues Fest and having this wave of love wash over me and going, this is bigger. This is not just me and my little experience. This is me opening up to what's absolutely out there. So I never felt like my son abandoned me or anything like that. What I felt was that he was extremely efficient and he got his job done in 9 months. So, and the job that he did was to cement my husband and I together, which was something that I really wanted in my life. I wanted to have all my life a relationship where I knew I could count on the person. And when we were looking at the ultrasound and I saw that the heart wasn't moving, and we both knew what we were looking at, nobody had to explain it to us. And I looked at him and I said, are we okay? And he said, yes, we're okay. I said, okay, then we can get through this. And it was that simple and that powerful too, because there are many relationships that don't withstand this.
Right. Absolutely.
And, I had experienced that he and I are both looking in the same direction.
Mm-hmm.
So having that kind of relationship where we're both looking toward the center, towards source energy, toward God energy, that was extremely helpful. I mean, it was like everything, really. And so when I said, I'm 33, I'm having life and death happen inside of me, this is not something I should just gloss over. This is not, just keep going until you have a live baby. That's not this. This is meaningful, and this needs to have its own situation, its own healing. So that year was very tumultuous, as I said. It took me about 5 years to get through all of that. That's 1 year, married, having a baby, stillbirth, graduating from chiropractic college, taking on 2 children, moving, starting a practice. That's 1 year. So I was like, okay, I can just like rest for a little bit. And then Sam came in 1996 in February, and he was just like the opposite, squirmy, wonderful, 3 hours of labor. I mean, it was just awesome. And he's grown into a wonderful man. And the girls loved their baby brother because they were 10 and 11 years older than he was when he was born.
Wow.
So lots of blessings there. And then the miscarriage, and that was almost harder in a way because people don't really give you much room for that. And I really wanted to like take some time off, but I had just started my practice. I was in practice, so I couldn't, I didn't feel like I could. I needed to keep going, and it was very difficult. And so after that, it was just sort of like, you know what? Show me how Jesus healed people, because I don't remember reading a lot of technique about what he did. Like he'd show up and they'd go, I'm healed. And he was,
the story goes.
yeah, as the story goes. And he also said, so I was pretty interested in this. So as the story goes, he says, all of these things you can do and greater than these if you believe, and do it in my name. Do it how I do it.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, show me that. That's what I want to see. I want to see that, because that makes more sense to me than anything. More sense than pills, more sense than procedures, more sense than techniques. But I really feel like the techniques that I've learned are all about getting you into the alignment with that energy of healing. And so because I'm not him and all fall short, but we're supposed to be perfectly imperfect. That's how we are, and we don't have to hold it against ourselves that we're perfectly imperfect. But that I can do that. I can do that. If I believe that I can, if I believe that I'm the vessel and I'm not doing the healing, I'm directing the healing. I'm like the healing GPS. So I would say, okay, Misha, close your eyes, point them over here, do this kind of breathing, allow yourself to think on these things, and then healing can happen. So it's really about me being a clear channel for that. And that was
stop you for just a second.
Yeah,
I want
that
to
was really
make sure that we've got people who are watching and listening, and I would love to ask, everybody to kind of think about like what is a painful experience you've gone through, and how has that impacted your life? Feel free to share as much or as little as you like. Those of you listening or watching. What I'm hearing from Dr. Tanya English is that, she had an extremely painful experience and a lot of things happening all in 1 year. And it took 5 years to process through all of that, which is actually pretty quick for a lot of people. So, what is the painful experience you've gone through? I'll go back in the chat messages and see what people have said and report back. So Tanya, as you are thinking about, those experiences, both the stillbirth and the miscarriage, I really appreciated what you heard around what you said to yourself around, if there's something good to be in this, please let me know what it is. Bring it to me. And somehow So a lot of people aren't open to that.
So I would say, like, the way I worded it when I was saying it was, show me what it is. Make it obvious. I don't want to miss it. Just show me. Make it really obvious, and I'll just be doing my thing while I'm waiting for this to show up.
Mm-hmm.
So that expectancy of, like, the same kind of feeling as, like, when you know your birthday is the next day and you know you're going to get one thing.
Hold on a second. Sorry, I pressed the wrong thing. Sorry. Go ahead.
When it's okay, it happens. Technology, yay.
Yeah. Exactly.
When you know your birthday's the next day, you know you're going to have a party, or you know you're going to have presents, that kind of expectancy to, like, I'm asking for this, I expect to see it.
Yeah.
And then making it obvious for me because I don't want to miss it. So show it to me really obviously. Make it like I cannot say, oh, that's just coincidence. I can't brush these things off. I want to make it so that it's very obvious to me that this is something that you're showing me, that it's coming from source.
Which is not often, not everybody can do that in that moment of pain. So what do you feel contributed towards your ability to know to ask that question?
The first 33 years of my life, I would say, contributed to that. I had gone through a lot in my life, and for some reason always was looking for who was in charge. Who's in charge of this? Because I'm not in charge, and it doesn't seem like my parents are in charge. Mm-hmm. And I have to figure out a way for this to make sense to me, and also know that there's something greater than me, because that was there for me. That was always there for me. There's something bigger than this. I wasn't brought up in a religious household. I wasn't, we didn't really talk about religion. We talked about philosophy more than that. And I was exposed to lots of different styles of belief. I was also sexually assaulted when I was a child. So this is why I'm going through this, to find out who's in charge, because apparently nobody is, because otherwise this wouldn't have happened. So trying to make sense of that, to allow it to become not something that dampened my spirit, but something that drove me towards source. So I know a lot of people don't think like that. I don't know why I'm that way. I've asked God many times, why do I see things the way I see them? And the answer I get back is because that's the way you see them. It's sort of like.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. I mean, for most of my life, I've been a relatively positive person, in the sense that my outlook is positive. And so, when I think about these challenging experiences that can be terribly painful, there's a great quote out there that says, congratulations, you've survived 100% of your tragedies or trauma. You're doing great, right? And so but there are also painful experiences that represent incredible joy, like an actual birth that does come to fruition, right?
Yeah.
So you know that there can be pain and joy in the same time.
Birth
and so
is all about that.
Right. Yeah. And we just asked the people watching and listening, what painful experience have they had, and if they want to share. And then the second question I would ask is, what were the gifts of your pain? And you answered that already. You said the gifts were that your unborn child, Eddie, you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Eddie gave you and your husband the gift of cementing, bonding your relationship. And that's just one of the gifts that came of your pain. And
that's
just because we're saying that there were gifts doesn't mean that you're not supposed to or allowed to feel the pain anymore. And I think people get very confused that if we're asking the question, what are the gifts of your pain? It's like we're dismissing the pain. And I don't want anyone to get that impression. It's about the acknowledgement, as my podcast states, the coexistence of joy and pain. They line up together, right? So those of you who are listening and watching, should you care to share a painful experience, feel free to talk about the pain, and then please feel free to share what gifts came from your pain. So go ahead. You were going to say something, Tanya.
No, I was saying, like, it's so much, the pain makes the gifts that much sweeter. And because something, I mean, I could have married the right guy anyway, and we could have had a great life anyway, but going through something like that together, that kind of fire that you walk through, and you walk through it together, even though we're separate people, we're still together. And actually, we're celebrating our 30th anniversary of the day we met this summer. Yeah, 7-Eleven. That's our day. Anyway, it's not at the 7-Eleven.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's okay. It's okay. You could have been having a slushy together or a Slurpee together.
Yeah, we could have. We actually did meet at a party, so that's kind of, slushy's kind of a party, I guess. But I think that some of the gifts were like, they didn't come until much later. Like, I had this experience with being healed through blues music and gospel, because Blind Boys sing gospel music as well. They're known as a gospel group, but they sing all kinds of stuff. And having that happen. So fast forward 25 years from there, and I'm sitting at dinner with the Blind Boys of Alabama before a show, because my mentor in blues singing is best friends with the last original blind boy.
Sweet.
Whose name is Jimmy Carter, not the president. Not that guy. And yeah, there are many guys named Jimmy Carter. Anyway, so we're sitting there at dinner, and he wants to meet me because he knows what happened to me. She told him my story. And when I told her, she's like, he's one of my best friends. He's going to want to hear this. And so, to have that happen, and then my husband was playing in bands. He's a bass player, and he was playing in blues bands and rock bands and all kinds of different music and country sometimes. And when I started to sing a little bit with his band, people kept asking us, why aren't you guys doing something together again? What's the reason you're not doing that? Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, I'll overshare. How about that? I had an out-of-body experience one day when I was singing, and I saw myself walking through the back door of the place where I was performing and going, oh, look, somebody's mom gets up and sings. And I was like, oh, I'm not doing that. Let's make this real. Let's see if this can be a real growing concern. And that's when we started the band.
Wow.
So it's been, and I have a background in theater, so it's like all comes around full circle. Yeah. So I get this experience of being able to really heal through blues music, singing it, performing it, listening to it. Before that, raising kids. I'm not going to do a band while I'm raising kids and running a practice. So I have to kind of wait for some of these gifts to show up later. And it's okay, because why not? I mean, yeah, there's all kinds of time.
So you've mentioned blues music. Does any kind of music help healing, or is it very specific? Do you feel it's very specific to blues?
Well, the thing that's specific about blues is it makes you understand, and people will say this about country music too, that it makes you understand that you're not alone. That somebody else has experienced this ahead of you. And so you can kind of rely on their experience. It's true for lots of different kinds of music. The reason why blues is such a healer, though, is because the people that began singing blues music had no hope of getting out of their situation. Mm-hmm. Slavery was not where they thought that they would be. If they were born into it, there was no hope of getting out. And they had to have some way to release their emotions. So it's a very emotional music, but it's all different kinds of emotions. And a lot of people say, oh, blues music's all whining and complaining. I'm like, well, not really. There's funny blues. There's sexy blues. There's let's have a party blues. There's I want to get close to you, baby blues. Yeah. There's all kinds of blues. And it's a great form because most people know 12-bar blues. And so if I'm going to a jam, I can say, okay, 12-bar shuffle in G, let's go. And the musicians know what I'm talking about. Nice. So it's a really easy conversation to have throughout many different genres with musicians, so they understand what that is. Mm-hmm. Now, if they don't, then they haven't studied or they haven't been exposed to it enough. But really, it's any music. And rock and roll came from blues, jazz came from blues, gospel came from blues. So hip hop, everything came from blues, except for a few other things like Appalachian music is not necessarily, it's more the older country music and folk, bluegrass. That's a different genre. Those are the white people playing the blues, and the black people playing the blues is two different things.
It is
That's
different. Very different. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's really the big difference too, is
So,
that it's explaining your emotions.
yeah, absolutely. And that's part of the healing process, is really being willing to hear, acknowledge, and appreciate our feelings, even when they're hard. Yeah.
That's how people experience the world, through their feelings.
Yeah.
And when we're taught that you shouldn't share your feelings, you shouldn't express your feelings, you shouldn't have any feelings, that's a way to keep people oppressed.
Yeah.
And suppression is a dangerous thing, because if you don't deal with your emotions, they will deal with you.
Yep.
And everybody that's had cancer has usually had some tragedy in their life that jolted them. And that jolt that happens is what begins that process. And that's all about epigenetics, the environment that the genes are in that tells them to turn on or off.
Interesting.
Yeah, it goes deep.
So what is the most prevalent challenge that the people, maybe explain a little bit about the work you do now, and the most prevalent challenge the people you work with face?
Usually it has to do with something that feels stopped up in them. Like they have a knowing, an understanding that there's something greater, but they don't know how to get to it. And it's very difficult to do that on your own. So most people are reading books, or they're taking seminars, or they're, listening to lectures, or they're going on retreats and stuff to try to get to this. And so what I do with my clients is we actually have techniques that start that work immediately.
Techniques on a physical or emotional, or both?
Both.
Both.
It's always both.
Yeah.
You can't really separate them.
So you combine your chiropractic with emotional healing.
Well, that's what chiropractic really is. It's removing interference from the nervous system. So I'm not really combining it. I'm actually doing my technique. And my technique is to do all the things that create let's go through the open door. Where's the door open here? Is it open in your physical body? Is it open in your mental, emotional, or spiritual body? Where is the door open? We'll go through the open door. So what you see when people say chiropractic, they're thinking of racking and stacking and people twisting and pushing and force.
Yeah. Well, I have a good chiropractor that I have a chiropractor who doesn't do all that. I mean, yes.
Right. But most people are going to think of that.
Most people, exactly. Absolutely.
And so what I'm going to say is that there are at least 60 different techniques that are called chiropractic techniques. At least 60. Now, the one that I use most often that people would recognize is activator technique. An activator technique, I use this instrument. This is an old one, but I've used it for years and years. I love it. And it delivers a very specific amount of vibration very, very quickly. This is Newtonian physics, okay? The billiard ball's on the pool table. You hit one ball, it hits the other ball, and that hits that ball. That's Newtonian. That's not living systems.
Yeah.
So we have to do something quantum too, because that's the physics of living systems. So I might use activator technique, but only after I've asked the body, what do you want? Which door is open? Is it emotional? Is it energetic? Do I need to switch this person's north and south? Is it correct? Is it in agreement with the earth? What do you want me to do? So I'm always asking the body, show me what you want. And it's not just the body, it's the body, mind, spirit, because they cannot be separated.
Right.
So I'm always questioning.
Yeah. So we just have a few minutes left, and I have so many questions, but I'm just going to ask one more. You also do work with people virtually, though. So if you can't use the little thingy-majigger,
the activator.
The activator, thank you. I couldn't remember the name. How do you do your work in the virtual platform?
Well, it's not necessary to do that when you're working in quantum. In the quantum field, there is no distance and there is no time. So people watching my live sessions that I have in my private Facebook group, they're going to get the same healing as somebody that's there live. They just have to allow it to come in.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times I'm using techniques that I might use a surrogate for, and the surrogate is either myself or an inanimate object that's showing me yes and no. And so it doesn't really matter if the person's with me in my location or if they're far, far away. I've worked with people as far away as South Africa. My first international client was in the Seychelles, and you cannot get further away from me than that. It's the largest. It's in the middle of the ocean, and the nearest city is Mogadishu. So I mean, it's pretty far away. But she will get healing.
Yeah, I'm always impressed when I'm speaking with my guests, because there's a level of confidence and pure joy in doing what you love doing. And it didn't just happen overnight. So when people are experiencing pain in their lives, that level of joy and security and confidence is not going to come overnight. And I think that, that's got to be probably the message of today, is that whatever you guys are going through, whatever you women are going through, whatever you men are going through, whatever you non-binary folks are going through, whatever race, sexual orientation, today is what you're experiencing. And so to know that you may get to the level of confidence and joy that you see Dr. Tanya English with after her trauma, and to put in perspective, it's taken time to get here.
Well, as a practitioner, yeah. But you know what? When I'm working with people, it changes like that very quickly. So I'll give you an example. I have an 89-year-old client who was very distraught over the passing of her daughter-in-law, who was her spiritual sister. We had one session and she said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I feel this good." And I said, "Well, how long did you want it to take?" She said, "I thought it would take weeks." I said, "No, we're clearing this up right now. Today. This is what we're doing." Now, she had to do some things to get there, but that session, it was pretty much done.
Right. And I think that depends on where the person arrives in their process. So absolutely. I think that as we start to make the decision, which is a great segue here, when we start to make the decision that we want this negative pattern to stop, or that we want this negative experience to be done with, then we can enter the process. And at that point, the process could be in a matter of a click, or it could be a few years or whatever. So I invite all of you to enter the process. And I'm really grateful that you were here to join us today, Dr. Tanya English. And I know you have something you'd like to give away to our listeners, and we'll put it in the chat later so people can access that. Can you let us know what that is?
Yeah, actually, if you go to my website, healingwiththeblues.com, and it's all spelled out as one word. If you go to that website and you just sign in there, then you'll receive an audio that's, I think that audio that's on that is the how to write the perfect affirmation. So a lot of people get caught up in doing affirmations, but they don't really speak to what's going on with you. So I have a little exercise that you can do. You listen to that, have a piece of paper and a pencil, and just follow the directions, and you'll come up with an amazing affirmation that's personal to you.
Awesome. So healingwiththeblues.com, and where would they find it on the page?
Oh, they just have to sign in on the webpage. A thing will come up, and if they give me their email, then they'll get it.
All right. So healingwiththeblues.com. It looks like as you start to move your cursor back up, you'll have this pop up, you guys. You put your name and your email in there, and you can get the exercise. And so super excited. And thank you, Elisa and Rachel. Glad you were here watching. Anybody else? And anyone tip that you'd like to throw out there to the listeners and viewers?
Yes. I do have one.
Yes, I'm not surprised.
One of my favorite things to do is to teach people how to do intentional breathing. And so when you're doing intentional breathing, when you're absolutely putting your attention on your breath, you're saying, "I want to live. I want to live, because you can live without food for a while, you can live without water for a few days, but 4 minutes without breathing. So when you put your attention on it, it actually brings more life into you. So I'm going to teach you this really quick, okay? So you do 4 count breathing. It's 4 counts in, and it's like 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000. You breathe in for 4, you hold it in for 4, you exhale through your nose for 4, and you hold it out for 4. So you just do that, and you can do it before you go to
when you
sleep.
breathe in, are you breathing in through your nose also, or breathing in through your
Always
mouth?
through your nose. Always,
Go
the
through
whole
the
thing
nose.
is through your nose.
Okay.
So in through your nose for 4. Do you want to do it right now?
Yeah, let's do it together. Yes. Okay.
So go ahead and empty all your air out.
I was going like this. Yeah, that doesn't work.
Empty your air out. Okay, and now ready? Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe normally. How do you feel now?
Peaceful.
Yeah. That was 16 seconds for 1 round. So that was 32 seconds. And that's what you can do to change your state. So you can go from fight or flight to rest, digest, and heal in 32 seconds.
Love it.
Teach your children how to do that.
You
It
go
helps
from
them manage
fight.
them.
Say that line again. You can go from fight to and
You
flight.
can go from fight or flight, high blood pressure, high heart rate, pupils dilated, ready to roll, shuts off your immune system, your digestion, and then you can go back to rest, digest, and heal that quickly.
Wonderful.
And I'll tell you that people who are emergency workers have a 10-year lower life expectancy, because you can go into fight or flight like that, but it takes hours to come out of it.
Absolutely.
So with this little exercise, you can do it very quickly.
Yeah.
So you're giving yourself more life. And if you want to really learn it, teach it to a child, because it helps them manage their state.
Fabulous. Thank you, Tanya. So glad that you were here with us. And everybody, feel free to put some love into the comments and in the chat. And if you have questions, you can definitely also connect with Dr. Tanya English on our website, healingwiththeblues.com. It's been a pleasure, and we wish everybody a joyful through the painful life. Bye, everybody.
Bye.